What's up, guys? I actually had a winning day yesterday, 4-3, thanks to those two hockey underdogs both getting there. Those both won somewhat easily. I would say Buffalo, nice, easy one, and then Nashville never trailed in their game. They were out to a 2-0 lead, although they allowed Dallas to tie it, but then they wound up taking a 2-goal lead again and then didn't look back and won the game. So that was awesome. Both of those ones hit. That was big. I actually got on Wake Forest at 3.5. I think I gave it out at 4 on the show, but I realized I had not actually played it yet right after I did the video. And I looked and I was like, wait, it's 3.5 right now. So that's just what I'll do. And that apparently wound up mattering quite a bit because Wake Forest, they were winning the whole game, although they could never really get like huge separation, but it looked like they were probably going to cover like the whole way. And then they wound up blowing the whole thing and went into overtime. They actually fell down 5, I think, in overtime, and then still wound up winning by 4. So they pushed on the 4, but they won on the 3.5. So that was kind of a crazy one. Louisville did not get there. Colorado did not get there. I don't know if I have to reassess those. Maybe I have to go dive into the box scores more on those. I haven't really done the like post-mortem on those ones yet. Portland was a pretty easy winner in college basketball. And then the Washington Wizards suck. So I don't know if that's news to anybody, but I thought they were in a good spot, and maybe I should just not be like bucking the market signals as much as I am. I guess I don't know. Man, I cleaned everything yesterday. My mic stand. I moved my mic stand around a little bit, and I don't know. I just can't get this quite right here. But let's move on to today, where I'm being pretty selective today. I'm not playing anything in college basketball. I'll point out that I think Youngstown State is in a pretty bad spot in the horizon there. We're now into conference play here. Youngstown State just had kind of like back-to-back pretty tough games against Oakland, losing by 7, and then going to Northern Kentucky, who is second in the conference right now, and Oakland is third in the conference. Losing to Northern Kentucky only by 3, and Youngstown, I think, was winning that game like the whole time and then wound up blowing it near the end, and it was a close game all the way to the end there, and they wound up losing the game against one of the top teams in the conference. I think Youngstown is actually one of the better teams in the conference too, but those are tough games. And they have the conference leader right now, IPFW, Indiana, Purdue, Fort Wayne up next. So this is a sandwich spot against IUPUI, Indiana University, Purdue University of Indiana. Is that what it is? Whatever it is. IUPUI, constantly one of the worst teams in the horizon, but at least for them, Detroit Mercy is a winless team and is actually somewhat worse than they are this year. But Youngstown, it is a sandwich spot, playing this game between like a bunch of like the bigger teams in the conference, the better teams in the conference. They might overlook IUPUI here, but the line's 18.5, and KenPom has this at 20 or something. So I just can't get involved. And the line's too big. It looks like it's going up a little bit on Youngstown. I won't do it. No thanks. I'll skip it. Tulsa, I think, is in a bad spot because they just took Memphis basically to the wire. That was a tough game for Tulsa, taking a ranked Memphis team to the wire. They were losing all game by quite a bit, and they came all the way back to tie it in the final like minute of the game, and then wound up losing anyway. I don't know how you get back up off the mat if you're Tulsa there, but they're playing at East Carolina, and the line has kind of gotten away from us. East Carolina up from 2 to 4.5 now. KenPom, when I looked at this, did not have the line, did not have a number where I wanted. Yeah, KenPom has East Carolina at 2, so I will not be laying 4.5 here. And in addition to that, East Carolina is coming off a fairly tough game against Florida Atlantic, even though Florida Atlantic did wind up beating them by, I don't know, I think it was double digits, but still kind of a tough game for East Carolina there. Yeah, they lost by 15 or whatever, but East Carolina was within 2 with 5 minutes left in that game. So that was a big performance for East Carolina, a tough game for East Carolina there. I think it might have been their conference home opener or something too. So both of these teams are kind of in bad spots, and the number's not where I want it to be, even though I think Tulsa's in the slightly worse spot. I'll just stay away from that too. And then in the Missouri Valley, Indiana State is at Northern Iowa. Indiana State's actually up from 1.5 to 2 as a road favorite. Indiana State is the better team here, but I think they're kind of in a bad spot because they have a look ahead to Drake next. Indiana State, Drake, that's going to be like a pretty big matchup in the conference. But Indiana State's coming off. If they were coming off that Michigan State battle, I might be on Northern Iowa here, but they're coming off kind of a tune-up where they beat Evansville pretty easily, so I don't know. I think Northern Iowa, it's still kind of a big game because Northern Iowa is still kind of a big-name team there in the conference, but this is Northern Iowa's home opener. But Northern Iowa's coming off a nice road win over Missouri State, too. Sort of things that just keep me off of this a little bit. KenPom does have this have Indiana State only winning this game by 1, though. So the KenPom number is kind of in range there. So this would be the closest that I would be to actually making a play, but it looks like the line's moving up on Indiana State. Northern Iowa is the way I would lean there because Indiana State does still have that look ahead to Drake, but Northern Iowa is still kind of a big game for both teams, but maybe a bigger game for Northern Iowa because it's their home opener in the conference. And then Drake also is playing today, and they have the look ahead to Indiana State. They're like the top 2 teams in the Missouri Valley here. Drake is at Belmont. Drake is up from 3.5 to 4 with 97% of the cash. It looks like it's 75% of the tickets. So it looks like Drake has the cash discrepancy there. KenPom has this line at 4, so that's kind of in line with what I would look for too. But is this going to be a big game for Drake playing against Belmont, who is kind of like a name team? And I think they're kind of a newcomer to this conference. They came over from like the Ohio Valley or whatever, but Belmont is coming off kind of an ugly loss to Southern Illinois, though. So I would lean to Belmont here. And Drake coming off kind of an easy win over Illinois State, so not really coming off a huge game either. But the Indiana State game is going to be kind of big for them. So I do lean to Belmont in this one. I think it's kind of a look ahead for Drake, but it looks like the market might be against me there. I'm just going to stay off of all that. It's, it's just kind of, it's all kind of a mess there. So I'll just stay away. Just, yeah. And then, couple of these Big Ten matchups. Michigan State Northwestern's kind of interesting. Michigan State's up from 2.5 to 2.5 with juice, but it looks like the tickets are evenly split at 50% and 71% of the cash is on Northwestern. So I don't know about that, the cash discrepancy being on Northwestern, but I think Michigan State continues to be a very undervalued team in the market. KenPom has them as the 17th ranked team. And Northwestern 68. They've KenPom has Michigan State winning this game by 4. I think Michigan State does continue to be undervalued. They had some losses early in the season, but they lost to James Madison in overtime, who just suffered their first loss of the season. They're a pretty good team, man. They lost to Duke, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Nebraska, who's not bad. So Michigan State doesn't really have any losses that you can really like scoff at there. They've had a really difficult schedule so far. They're coming off an easy win over Penn State, though. I don't know if I want to get involved when Michigan State just won by 30, and they have Illinois up next, which is a pretty big win. Even though I didn't realize it when I mentioned that I liked Purdue against Illinois, and Purdue probably should have covered that, but Illinois made a crazy like late comeback to wind up covering that game, even though Purdue still won. Illinois, like I think their best player, I forget what his name is now like out with like sexual assault charges. So he's like just gone from the team. So that's just kind of weird. So we'll see what happens to Illinois with that. That's kind of a hit to Illinois for sure. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. But yeah, Michigan State, Northwestern here. And Northwestern, speaking of Illinois, I think that player was out for Illinois in that game too, and Illinois beat Northwestern by 30. So Northwestern's coming off a game where they lost by 30, and Michigan State's coming off a game where they won by 30. So situationally, I think it's a better spot for Northwestern, but numbers wise, I think Michigan State would be the right side there. So there are a lot of conflicting things going on in there. So numbers wise, I would say it's gone up to 3 now. I just saw it tick up to 3. Numbers wise, I would say Michigan State is the right side, but situationally and the market both are indicating on Northwestern. So we'll see about that, man. I don't know what's going to happen there. Moving over to the actual plays I have, let's go to NBA first. I have one play here. First of all, I would look to be going against the Spurs because of what they just did. They just had a tough game on TNT that everybody saw against the Milwaukee Bucks. They took the Bucks all the way to the wire. So it's like, I don't know how much left the Spurs are going to have in the tank, but they're playing against the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers are up from 10 to 10.5 as a home favorite, but it looks like 80% of the cash is on the Spurs and 76% of the tickets on the Cavs. So it looks like the market discrepancy, the cash discrepancy is way on the Spurs here. And the Cavs do have this weird NBA Paris game up next in a few days against the Brooklyn Nets, which I'll talk about in a minute. So I just can't get involved with the Cavs, man. The Cavs are coming off some easy wins against the Warriors. The Spurs, like I said, they're in a bad spot coming off that tough game against the Bucks where they fell just short against the Bucks. So, like, will they run out of gas here? Maybe, but I don't want to lay this many points with the Cavs, especially if the Cavs are going to be looking ahead to this weird Paris game. I don't want to get involved in that. And then Hawks, Magic. I would say the Magic are in a bad spot, but the Hawks have flipped from a 2-point underdog to a 2-point favorite, even though they're not the better team here, but they're laying 2 on the road now against the Magic. So the line is just getting kind of out of control. The Magic have a bunch of injuries, although they're not like injuries to like their best players, but it is going to like take away a lot of their depth, I think, depending on how many of these guys are actually out for this game for the Magic. The Magic might not have that much of a deep bench for this game. So I would keep that in mind here. I think the Magic are in a really horrible spot here, but I hate this number. I can't lay 2 with the Hawks on the road here when there aren't like really, really significant injuries here. The line's just gotten away from us too much. If we were getting the Hawks as an underdog, I might just jump in on it because the Magic are the better team though. So at home, like if you don't take into account the situation at all, at home, the Magic should probably be laying like 3 points or something like that in this game against the Hawks. But the Hawks laying 2, I'm not going to get involved. The Magic have 73% of the cash and 64% of the tickets, it looks like. So it looks like maybe once the line is shifted that maybe the market is saying this is an overreaction now. Favoring the Hawks here is an overreaction. So now the money looks like might be coming in on the Magic a little bit. The cash discrepancy on the Magic. So there's some weird stuff going on in the market. I don't like the number, so I just have to stay off it. But like, my reaction here was going to be I got to take the Hawks here because this is a bad spot for Orlando. It is a sandwich spot. Orlando's returning home from a road trip with only 1 day off, and on that road trip they lost to Phoenix by 5, close game. Lost to Golden State by 6, close game. Lost to Sacramento in what I thought was a sandwich spot, a bad spot. They came all the way back from down double digits against Sacramento, wound up going to double overtime, and then finally lost by 3 to Sacramento. Unfortunately for me, Sacramento missed covering by a couple points there. Then they went into Denver after all that to finish the road trip and won in elevation in Denver. Now they only have 1 day off after all that. And those 3 games, the last 3 of those games were all over a span of 4 days as well. Now they only have 1 day off, so now they're in a 4th game in 6 days, all in different cities, returning home from a road trip, and they have Minnesota up next, and then Miami, and Oklahoma City, and the Knicks. So this is definitely a look ahead. It is a sandwich spot. It's a return home spot. It's one of the worst spots that a team could possibly be in. The situation is horrible for the Orlando Magic here. Horrible. So I would look to play the Atlanta Hawks here, but then just based on this number, unfortunately, I can't do it. I just have to stay off it, man. As horrible as that spot is for Orlando, this is kind of like a situation that you dream of finding on the board, to be honest. And Atlanta just lost to the Pacers in what I thought was kind of a bad spot for the Pacers to some extent. It was a bad spot for both teams, though, because Atlanta was coming off a game where they beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then I think the Pacers are coming off a couple really good games of their own where they scored a ton. The Pacers put up 150 on Atlanta in that game. Atlanta lost 150 to 116. They got to be in a bounce back mode after this, man. So everything about the spot screams Atlanta here. Atlanta's in a bounce back spot after allowing 150 in a totally embarrassing game. Magic returning from a West Coast road trip, coming off a game where they won in Denver. Huge win, and having Minnesota up next, and it being a return home spot. I would only look to the Atlanta side here. But again, this number has gotten too far away from us. If the number starts coming back down for us, maybe like later in the day, I might jump in on Atlanta here. And it is still kind of like a pick, almost like a pick the winner situation, but I just can't do it, man. I would have to get them as like an underdog or like right around like a pick 'em price, maybe at best there. The market looks like it's also against it. So unfortunately, I can't do it. But the play that I am on in the NBA here is going to be on the, what am I on here? Oh, and I do think I don't know. I was going to say the Grizzlies are in a bad spot too, just to point that out. The Suns are up from 4 to 4.5 with juice. 88% of the cash on the Suns, 50% of the tickets. Looks like evenly split there. The Suns, They're coming off, what are they coming off of? A game where they beat the Heat, though, by like 16. So I don't really want to get involved in the Suns. Are coming off a couple big games. They lost to the Clippers in a pretty close game, tough game. Then they beat the Heat by a lot. So I just don't really want to get involved on Phoenix there because they're coming off a big win. A big win themselves there, but Memphis is coming off a big win over the Lakers, even though the Lakers have not played well recently. Memphis went in and beat the Lakers by double digits in LA. LA has not been playing well recently, but it is still the Lakers. It is still LeBron, and the Lakers are the team that eliminated Memphis from the playoffs last year, I believe. And the Grizzlies had not beaten them yet this year. I think they played them once this year and lost. So that was a big win for the Grizzlies, man. Finally getting revenge against the team that knocked you out last year. So I would lean to Phoenix slightly in the game against Memphis, but I'm not getting involved in that one. I can't quite do it. The game that I will be on, though, I'm going to go against the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn Nets, they had lost a bunch of games in a row, 5 games in a row. And unfortunately, I was on the game where they did not cover at Oklahoma City. They returned home from a road trip and did not suffer the road trip distraction, like letdown spot there 2 days ago. They got revenge on Oklahoma City after losing at Oklahoma City. They beat Oklahoma City. That's a huge win for the Brooklyn Nets, man. You beat Oklahoma City on the return home from the road trip. Now I think if you were not unfocused for that game and you return home from a road trip, I think it's a little bit, you might have a little bit of a step back and be kind of like facing those return home distractions in your next game, which I think might be the case here. And Brooklyn might be in a situation where they're trying to get their like home stuff done here because they have to go out to Paris to play the Cleveland Cavaliers on Thursday on the 11th. And then they have Miami up after that. So they have some big games up next too. So I think this is a sandwich spot, man. The Paris thing is kind of a big game. It's one of those weird, like, isolated games there. It's against Cleveland, who's not a bad team. I think that might be a look ahead for Brooklyn here. Brooklyn's coming off a huge win on the return home over Oklahoma City, who's been playing really well. Big win for Brooklyn, getting quick revenge on Oklahoma City as well. Now they have the Portland Trailblazers coming in who suck. Who's going to be paying attention to the Portland Trailblazers, man? And the Trailblazers just lost again. They lost 2 games in a row. They've lost every game. Well, they've lost 3 in a row. They've lost every game on this road trip so far. They have a long road trip here that keeps going. They've 4 more games on the road trip on a 7-game road trip. That's just ridiculous. They've been blown out in all 3 games on the road trip so far against Phoenix and then 2 against Dallas. So now they have a game, maybe a potentially winnable game, even though they're big underdogs here. They might think, well, if we're going to salvage a game on the road trip, it might be this one because this is the worst team that we're playing on the road trip here, Brooklyn. So Portland is in that situation. They're off another bad loss by 36 points. I think Portland's in a spot where they might be able to turn around a little bit here. In Brooklyn, like I said, are in a letdown spot off that huge win, and they have the Paris game coming up next. This line is up from the net 7 to 8.5, but they have 79% of the tickets on them, but 68% of the cash over on the other side on the Portland Trailblazers. I like the Trailblazers here, or I guess the better way to say it is I don't like the spot the Nets are in at all. I think it's a big number, and it's a decent spot for the Trailblazers to come within this number. I don't think the Nets should really be laying this many points, even though I think they're not as bad as their record looks maybe. But Portland, nobody's going to want Portland at all with how bad their record is. I like it. I like Portland. That's what I'm doing there. I'm taking the Trailblazers plus 9 there, I think is what the number is going to be there. So that's what I'm on in the NBA, and then going to the NHL real quickly. I got one play in the NHL, and I'm actually making this a spread play. We'll see what I can get on the spread here. Calgary at Chicago. Calgary is actually up from minus 215 to minus 238 as a road favorite here, but I think this might not be because there's like a ton of like huge money on Calgary. I think it might be because the Connor Bedard injury situation. This is an injured player theory spot for Chicago, man. One of the big stars in hockey that everybody's been talking about, the rookie Connor Bedard. He got hurt in Chicago's last game right at the beginning in a loss that they had to the New Jersey Devils. He broke his jaw early on in that game, got hit. It was a legal hit, but he got nailed right under his jaw there and broke his jaw, had to leave the game. He's now going to be out. I don't know how long he's going to be out. Looking at the market here, Calgary's got 70% of the tickets, but 77% of the cash is on Chicago, at least against the money line, I guess is what we're looking at there. But even so, big cash discrepancy on Chicago is now a big home underdog. And yeah, Chicago's not good, and now they're down their best player, but I think they might step it up, man. It's the injured player theory. I think you're getting a little bit of extra value because Chicago's going to be without their star player now. They're coming off another ugly loss. They've lost a bunch of games in a row, 5 losses in a row. They're returning home from a road trip, which I tend to not want to play teams that return home from a road trip. And when you lost all the games on the road trip, I think that actually kind of makes it even worse. And they are playing a third game in 4 days and a fourth in 6. All of that is bad. Yes, they're in a bad scheduling spot here, but I think we're getting too much value on Chicago here, man. I think it's an injured player theory spot. This is one of the only times where I'm actually going to buck the return home spot there. And Calgary, they're also playing a third game in 4 days and a fourth in 6, all in different cities. So that kind of negates that whole aspect of it. They're both in like bad rest spots, bad travel spots there. And Calgary played yesterday and Chicago did not. So Calgary is actually in the worst rest spot out of the two. So I believe Chicago did not play yesterday. So yeah, so Calgary is actually in a slightly worse spot there. As bad as Chicago's spot is on the return home from the road trip. Third game in 4 days. It's a fourth game in 6 for them. Yeah. And I think it might be a 5th and 8 as well. For Calgary, it is also a 5th and 8, I believe, all in different cities, or a 5th and 9 maybe. But it is a 4th and 6 and a 3rd and 4, all in different cities, and a back-to-back for them. And they played a tough game yesterday against Philadelphia, who's been playing well. That was somewhat of a big game, man, for Calgary, and it ended their win streak. So that's not good either. That kind of is a momentum stopper type of game there for Calgary. Yesterday, they had a nice win streak going on. They'd beaten Philadelphia the previous time they played them. They went into Minnesota, won, went into Nashville, won, and then they went into Philadelphia and lost. And I mean, yeah, they might not want to go 2-2 on this road trip, but is that enough of a motivating factor there? I wish they had a bigger game up next than Ottawa, but even so, that Philadelphia game was a hard-fought game, man, by Calgary. Close game. It was 2-2. They lost right near the end on a short-handed goal, man, with a couple minutes left in the game. Tied game. Calgary had a power play, and they gave up a short-handed goal, and that's how they lost. That's a tough way to lose that game, man. So I don't know if they're going to get back up off the mat. Chicago, I think they might rally here, even though it is a return home spot, which I don't like. It's typically a bad spot. But their road trip, I mean, it only took them to Dallas, Nashville, and then out to the East Coast. It's not like the longest road trip geographically. So maybe it's not like the worst road trip return spot you can be in. Calgary's really in a bad spot here. So I like it. I like the way the market is indicating on Chicago here. I think Chicago might rally for their injured star there in Bedard. I kind of like it. You can get the spread here. We'll do plus 1.5 goals here at minus 115 is what you can get on Chicago right now. So that's what I'm going to do, and then sprinkle a little bit on the money line at a plus 210. So we'll do that. So you can get a little bit, yeah. You can get plus 1.5 goals at minus 115. Maybe if you can wait a little bit, maybe you can even get minus 110. I don't know if the number is going to continue to climb up a little bit, but you can basically turn this into like almost a regular like spread play. You're only laying a little bit more than that, the minus 115 juice. I like it. Let's do it. So those 2 plays for today are going to be on in the NBA. What did I do? Portland plus 9 in the NBA, and then Chicago Blackhawks plus 1.5 on the puck line there. Going to the NFL quickly, because it is an NFL Sunday. We don't want to forget about that. And man, the Colts yesterday, they let me down. My favorite team, man, the Colts. That game played like a Colts game, man. That was a game. And well, Pittsburgh, I would say that wasn't surprising. The Pittsburgh won that game. Baltimore didn't really have anything to play for. Their backups with Huntley in there. I mean, they played okay, but Pittsburgh pretty much had that game. So now Pittsburgh won that game fairly easily. They stayed alive. They still have a shot at the playoffs. Colts are now out of it, and Houston is now in, unfortunately. That game, man, that game played the way the Colts wanted it to, man. A lower scoring game. The Colts defense was actually able to keep CJ Stroud in check there enough to be in that game. Jonathan Taylor ran all over the place. He had like almost 200 yards rushing, something like that. That was a Colts type of game, man. Jonathan Taylor running all over the place. Colts like having a lot of time of possession there, keeping Houston's offense off the field quite a bit. That was the way the Colts wanted to play that game. It played like a game the Colts should have won. And then on that last drive from Houston, man, the Colts sacked Stroud back, I think twice. Twice Houston had like 3rd and long situations there and made these just like miracle throws to convert on 3rd down. Just completely ridiculous. And they wound up getting a touchdown on that drive. That drive could have easily ended multiple times, and the Colts could have just wound up winning the game with like a field goal near the end or something like that. But instead, they gave up the touchdown. Fairbairn, who was hurt earlier in the season, actually missed the extra point on that. Even though it was in a roofed stadium, that's quite ridiculous. Leaving the door open for the Colts, and the Colts got all the way down the field, and the Colts had not converted a 3rd down. Their offense really wasn't that great. Their passing offense didn't really do much in the game. Even though Houston's defense isn't very good, the Colts marched all the way down. I think they got into the red zone at the end there, and it was just brutal the way this happened. And they finally converted a 3rd down on that drive, 1 3rd down, the only one they converted in the whole game. They missed on another 3rd down conversion. They had a 4th and 1 right near the end. They made the right play call. It was a pass play, short pass. The receiver was wide open, and they would have had the 1st down, extended the game, extended the drive. Looked like they were going to be able to get a touchdown. They just needed to make that catch, and they would have had a new set of downs, like somewhere inside the 15 or whatever. The throw was a little bit bad. It was a little bit behind the receiver there, but he was wide open, man. And an NFL receiver still should be able to catch that pass, even though it was a little bit behind him. The throw was a little bit off by Minshew, but I think the receiver still should have caught that, and he dropped it. He was wide open. Watching that play, it looked like it was a sure 1st down there. Like, holy shit, he's wide open. They got the 1st down there, and the throw is a little bit behind him. He just drops it. You got to make that completion in the NFL, man. And that is how the Colts season ends. It is so bad. And the door was open, man. If they gotten a touchdown, they would have won the game with an extra point because Houston had missed the extra point. After Houston had converted a couple of really crazy 3rd and longs on that drive where they scored what wound up being the winning touchdown. Brutal for the Colts. Brutal for me as a Colts fan. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. Oh, man, it is so ugly. It's so bad. I do have 2 plays in the NFL today, as I mentioned. The Bills are actually up to a 3-point favorite. Now, you might still be able to get them at 2.5 like I did. They still have 75% of the cash on them and 64% of the tickets. I still lean to the Bills, even though maybe the number isn't giving us the best value there. I do think the Bills are definitely the better team over the Dolphins, and it would be a complete travesty if the Bills did not make the playoffs. Man, they are maybe the 2nd best team in the AFC this year, maybe even better than the Chiefs. I think they're just only behind the Ravens there. They deserve to be in the playoffs. They got to win this game, man. I think for the good of the NFL, and maybe the NFL kind of wants both of these teams to get in. Miami's already in the playoffs. It's just a matter of winning the AFC East or not. And if they lose this game, they'll be a wild card, although they'll fall down to the 6th slot, I believe, as a wild card because Cleveland's in the 5. But even so, the Bills need to win this game, man, because Pittsburgh won yesterday. I think if the Bills lose this game, they're now out. So because Pittsburgh won and Jacksonville probably will win their game, I guess, against Tennessee, even though I don't think it's a sure thing, really, because the pressure is going to be on Jacksonville there. But Trevor Lawrence has had some playoff experience now like this. So we'll see what happens in that game. But although I kind of lean to the Titans to cover the number in that one as a home underdog there, I think they do want to spoil the party. But the Bills, if they lose this game, they're going to be out of the playoffs, and that would just be a travesty, a joke. But maybe that means the NFL, they want that like revenue, man, from these better playoff games. They kind of want Josh Allen to get into the playoffs, I think. So hopefully the NFL is a little bit rigged there, and that will like help my bet in this case. I don't want anything to be rigged, but if it's going to help my bet a little bit, let's do it, man. I want Josh Allen in the playoffs, man. The Bills, they just deserve to be there, man. If you're going to leave one of the best teams in the NFL out of the playoffs by like 1 loss there, I hate that. But I think because the Steelers won that game, it's going to add even more motivation to the Bills here. And yeah, it might add a little bit of pressure as well. And they're having to cover a number on the road. But where I got it at 2.5, it's still kind of just like a win the game type of thing, even though the Colts would have only won by 1 last night if they'd won. So there is still the possibility of winning by 1 or 2. But I think the Bills are just the better team, man. They've had a lot of high pressure situation games like this. They have a lot of playoff experience now, more than the Dolphins. The Dolphins still have not gotten over the hump, really, man. Even though, yeah, they won that game against Dallas, there was some weird stuff that went on in that Dallas game. I just don't know, man. And I think the other thing about that Dallas game is Miami. I think their kicker Sanders made 5 field goals in that game, and 3 of them, including the winner, were all over 50 yards. So they could have, if they had missed any one of those field goals, Dallas still would have won that game. So that's also kind of crazy there. Or if Dallas had actually converted on that opening drive and gotten into the end zone when they were like an inch short and then wound up fumbling the ball over in the next play. If they had gotten in the end zone there, Dallas also would have won the game. So I don't know what you could take away from that Miami win over Dallas. I still don't think they're really over the hump there. I think Buffalo is definitely the better team. Maybe they're not so much the better team. They should be laying this much lumber on the road. But even so, Miami's dealing with a lot of injuries and kind of chaos there. I don't know how they're going to react to that, like, really kind of deflating loss to the Ravens there. Buffalo needs this game more than Miami does, so we'll see what happens there. And Buffalo, like I said, they're the more experienced team in situations like this. And Miami still is not really, they've not gotten over the hump and shown that they can like win against a really good team in a really high, like, big time game like this. But the pressure is more on the Bills because Miami is already in the playoffs. So does that help Miami at all? I mean, they're going to be a little bit looser. I don't know. Or does it take away from their motivation a little bit? We'll see about that. I don't know what's going to happen in that one. We're going to wind up seeing. And then let's see. Chiefs Chargers is not looking good for me, really, even though I took the Chargers -2.5. The line, the market is flipped now to the point where the Chiefs have 65% of the cash on them and 58% of the tickets now. So I really don't like that the cash discrepancy has shifted onto the Chiefs a little bit there. I really don't like that. I hope it changes before the game kind of goes off there. I don't like it. I really don't love that one. So we'll see what happens in that Chiefs Chargers one. The cash discrepancy now going against me in the Chargers game, but I do kind of like the situation as far as the Chargers are concerned there. And then what was the other game? I'm really tempted to actually get on the Chicago Bears here, man, and add one more play in the NFL today, even though I didn't make the play in my actual video here. We can get the Bears +3. You can actually get +3 at the -110 vig. Should I do it on the show right now? Yeah, let's jump on it, man. I'm going to do it. I'm jumping on the Chicago Bears +3. I kind of like the spot, man, for the Chicago Bears. I think that we're in a high pressure situation for the Green Bay Packers here, man. They need to win to get into the playoffs. High pressure situation here. They're laying points at home. They looked way too good last week. That was against a Minnesota team that had Jaron Hall in there. Minnesota just looked like an absolute disaster. Now everybody's going to want Green Bay here, even though it looks like, well, the market situation, we now have 59% of the cash on the Bears and 52% of the tickets on them. So I don't know. So it looks like maybe the public is kind of on the Bears. I don't know about that, but I think the Bears really want to play spoiler, man. These two teams really don't like each other. And Green Bay in week 1 went into the Bears' house and crushed them 38-20. Now Green Bay looks way too good off of that win on primetime that everybody saw, just absolutely trashing the Vikings. Although, like I said, Vikings had Jaron Hall in there. They just looked like an absolute mess of a team. Couldn't do anything. Now we got the Chicago Bears coming in. And yeah, the Bears are also coming off a couple of nice wins there as well. They blew out the Atlanta Falcons in their last game, but I don't think anybody's going to care about them beating the Falcons or the Cardinals. The public was on Chicago in those. I have kind of the feeling that the public kind of wants Green Bay here because now it's Green Bay is the better team. They're the Packers. They're the name team. Everybody kind of likes the story, Green Bay, but it's Jordan Love. This is going to be the highest pressure situation that I think he's faced so far. I think this is his first season as a starter, right? I think with Rodgers now gone there, this is going to be the highest pressure situation that he's been in. They're in a must-win situation. Chicago's going to be gunning for them and getting points. I think it would just be like, I don't know. It just seems like karma or something like that for Chicago to have opened the season with a horrible loss at home to Green Bay. It just only makes sense for them to go into Green Bay and end the season by destroying them and have the season book ended that way. It just seems like karma, man. So I'm taking Chicago +3. I'm going to do it. Oh, boy. Oh, man. So now I have 3 plays there. And then the other one, like I said, is going to be on the LA Chargers there. I still think it's a really bad spot for the Chiefs, man. Everything I said in my video there, the Chiefs are coming off that big win over the Bengals. That's always a huge rivalry, even though Joe Burrow wasn't in that game. Huge win for the Chiefs. And now Patrick Mahomes is being rested, and I guess he's sort of like injured. He's listed as doubtful on the injury report. I think they're going to rest him anyway, though. They want him to heal up. He's got another ankle thing. They're going to want him to heal up for the playoffs. They can't improve their situation at all. They're locked into the 3. They know they're hosting a playoff game. They don't know who they're hosting yet. Depends on the way the rest of these games shape up, but they're hosting a playoff game next week. So this is a sandwich spot for the Chiefs still. So I still do like the Chargers, even though the market is now kind of against me on that one. I think the Chargers are going to want to end their season on a high note after they had such a horrendous game in Denver. They looked awful. They're going to want to do something, and they don't want their season to end that way, man. I think they have the Chiefs coming out there, and like I said, I think the Chiefs might treat this as a little bit of a vacation, getting out of the cold and going to L.A. and having a nice weekend out there in L.A. And you get to play. You have to play a game that doesn't really matter for you, but and you already beat LA once this year, I believe. You're playing against an LA team that now doesn't even have Justin Herbert. I think you might be going to the beach and like kind of having some fun out there in the sun and the better weather there out in LA, which I assume is better weather out there. So I don't know if the Chiefs are going to be totally focused on this game, but for the Chargers, this is their last game of the season, man, and they get to host the Chiefs. I think they're going to want to show up and play a good game here to end the season. This is this is their final game then, and they might want to play well under their new coach now that Brandon Staley is out of there. I think they like playing for this new coach more than they did for Staley, who I think they really didn't like. I think they're going to want to get this win, so I like the Chargers still in that game, and I think you can still see that the public certainly does not like that, even though it looks like the cash discrepancy is now on the Chiefs in that one. I think you can still see that the public is going to still be on the Chiefs in that one, thinking like even the Chiefs with Blaine Gabbert as the backup, they still like them better than Easton Stick. They don't like anything that they've seen out of the Chargers, and they react to what they saw last, and they saw a Chargers team that just couldn't even score at Denver. But it's not an easy spot to go into Denver, into elevation. I don't know. So you might see the Chargers team that's going to be focused on this one refocus a little bit. Chiefs, I don't think are going to be focused on this game. They just clinched their playoff spot as the 3rd seed in the AFC with a big win over the Bengals in that big rivalry that they've had going on there. And they get the playoff game up next. They don't know who it's going to be against yet, but they're going to be looking ahead to that, I think, and riding a high, coming off that big win over the Bengals. This game doesn't mean anything to them. I think it means more to the Chargers to finish the season on at least a positive note for their new coach there and beat one of the teams that has been the dominant team in their division for so long. Even if it is not against Mahomes, it's against Blaine Gabbert. And like I said, Gabbert, he was not their backup last year. Chad Henne was. So I don't know how much Gabbert knows the system, how good he is at playing in the system, although it might mean that the Chargers don't really know what to prepare for with Blaine Gabbert in there. But even so, who knows? So we'll see what happens. So my NFL, you can go watch my NFL video as well. I'm now on 3 plays in the NFL on the Chargers -2.5, although the line's 3 now. Buffalo -2.5, although it looks like the line is 3 now as well. Maybe 2.5 still is out there in places. Chicago Bears +3. And then in the NHL, even though it's return home spot, I'm on both Chicago teams here. The Blackhawks +1.5 goals at -115, and Portland Trailblazers in the NBA +9. Let's have another winning day, man. I've somehow gotten away with 2 winning days in a row here now. It's small wins, but I'll take it, man. Let's just keep riding it. Let's go, man. Let's keep it up. Enjoy all these games today. And we're getting into the playoffs now, man. It's going to be fun. Peace.